An invitation inspired me to write it. I had known Andrew here for a few years. He had done a small piece on the commitments, my first novel. I think it was 1987, Andrew, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
And we'd kept in touch, and he was keen that we do something together. And he met Michael Waring of the BBC, and Michael came over to Dublin with Andrew just to see about me doing something with them. And I was going in on the train to meet them in Dublin city centre. It was a Sunday, I think. And literally on the journey, I began to think in terms of family drama that would be quite different to the previous work I'd done, darker. The next door neighbours to an emotionally successful family I'd been writing about for a few years. So by the end of the evening, between just thinking about it myself and then talking to Andrew and Michael, I had this rough idea of a 4-part series with dealing with one family, and each episode would be told from the point of view of a different family member.
Down. Tasted better.
Well, Roddy's books were so successful at the start that there was a huge amount of interest in optioning them, and the thing with family was the first thing I think he'd written. It was an original that hadn't been in a book form first, so that meant that we owned the rights at the start of the BBC did, and Michael and I have been friends for a long time, and we talked together, and you just done Love Lies Bleeding, I think, for the BBC, so Michael Waring was a fan of Michael's already, so it was a nice thing to be able to work together, knowing sort of different relationships coming together.
I think I was still working on the script when I met you, Michael, so it was very early on, and Michael was always going to be the director. It was very straightforward in retrospect. It was very, I think everything seems straightforward in retrospect, but it does seem to have been quite straightforward.
Hey. Hey, you!
What?
Do you expect me to eat that shit, do you?
What's wrong with it?
Stuck to the bleeding plate, the chips are dry. It's disgusting. Hey, I'm talking. I'm talking.
Jesus!
Now.
Let go.
Fooled you, huh?
I'd been writing about a family called the Rabbits in The Snapper and the Van, and I'd started the screenplay of The Snapper, which the BBC made and Stephen Frears directed. So I had been living with this fictional family that by and large was emotionally very successful, a very loving family. But I didn't want myself personally or creatively to think that this was every family, that every family was like this, and this was the quintessential Irish story or, Western story. So I was keen to go next door and look at a family that wasn't working really, and that the kids in the Rabbit household, the baby in the Snapper is lucky to be born into that house, but a baby born into the Spencer house next door, and I don't mean literally next door, figuratively, probably less lucky. It just seemed to make sense to start with one parent and finish with another parent and have 2 of the children in the middle, if something with 4 parts can have a middle. It just made sense, like bookends. And I had no idea when I just, started giving the family names and then decided Charlo, John Paul, Nicola and Paula. I had absolutely no idea how episode 4 was going to end or what was going to be in there. It was just a name and really very little else. Things that happened in the first episode began to ripple through the others then. It began to take shape then.
Quiet. Loads of hush.
What's going to happen?
Shush now, no talk, right?
Daddy!
Brilliant, what? Brilliant. Yeah.
Jamie, it's after blown up, did it? Yeah. Stupid.
Good man, off you go.
How does it do it?
I don't know, do you?
Kind of. Just does. Where did you get that?
Found it. Show it, go on.
Look it. Where?
Don't worry about it. Look it, watch. That was good, wasn't it?
I think at the time there was probably discussion about each episode, because it's about a different central character, should have a slightly different feel. So I think, with Charlo, we're kind of hoping to be somewhere between sort of Ken Loach and Martin Scorsese at that point. But I can't really remember kind of what the idea was beyond that. But I think it was really just, really just a question of like trying to make it as simple and as faithful to kind of the kind of Roddy's world and the kind of real situation we're in. We were filming in a place called Ballymun, which was became sort of quite a big kind of character in the kind of story in a way. It was like it's a kind of really kind of great location to film in. So. But I think it was just a question of just trying to shoot it as directly as possible, really.
So the music was really important, I think. I mean, as Roddy said, there wasn't a lot of music specified in the script, but I think Michael's choices about the music were fantastic. There were moments, because when we first met, we spent a lot of time talking about music we'd grown up with on the John Peel show. And there's a scene, I'm pretty sure it's in, is it at the end of the first episode where they're on the beach after doing and there's the Pretenders back in the Chain Gang. And just one of those moments where it just felt really cinematic, and it was all the sounds there. And there were moments like that, I think, where they just elevated it to something above normal television.
Bullseye.
Where's my rag? You can't beat the old seaside though, huh?
Brilliant, what?
Excellent.
Ole, 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 ole.
I can't remember exactly when I started writing it, but I think very few people in Ireland at the time would have realised that we were moving out of what would be called a recession and into what became a boom, the Celtic Tiger. And having lived, an adult life through the late 70s and right into the 80s and into the beginning of the 90s, I thought I was living in a consistently poor country. I liked living there, but in many ways a failure. So many people emigrating constantly, and it was a fact of life. And the unemployment rate was huge. The area I was teaching in, I can't remember what the figure was, but it's almost unimaginable. I think something like 40% of adult men were unemployed at some point, in the 80s, and it was just, and that was by no means the worst in Dublin, and very little shining through it all. Yet people got on with their lives as they do, and. So I was writing about a bleak place, really, a place where crime often wouldn't be considered crime. It was making a living. I suppose it's that cliche, making ends meet, that either Paula is the one who makes ends meet. The money she brings home will be spent, on food, shoes, things like that. The money Charlo makes will, by and large, stay with Charlo.
What are you fucking at?
You're not getting him involved. It's only pig, Mum. I have to. Put them down, I told you.
Take them out the back.
Don't.
Do what you're told. What's your bleeding problem?
You're not getting him into trouble.
What trouble?
Just leave him out of it.
Out of what?
Jesus.
Come on, move your ass. Come on,
No,
come on.
he won't.
Get that gear out the back and mind you don't scratch any of it.
Don't jump on.
What are you playing at, you bitch?
Leave him
You won't
alone.
get its car.
The first episode, where we don't actually see Charlo hitting her, if I remember, but actually, you know full well he has and he will and he did. So it's nothing new. And the little lad grabbing his asthma inhaler, it's not the first time he's done that. you know. So, no, it's a continuation. I always felt it was just a slice of their, you know, a slice of their lives, a few months in their lives. And that the escalation is in, you know, I suppose, Paula reaching the decision that this is unbearable.
You're all right. What's wrong with yous? Suit yourselves.
Everybody wants some ice cream. Yeah? You go to the shops first, John Paul, won't you?
And even, it was broadcast in Ireland just a few days after the Eurovision Song Contest when Riverdance was unleashed on the world, and Ireland was sexy for the first time in not just anyone's memory, but in the memory soup of the nation, you know. Ireland hadn't been sexy since before St. Patrick came. So suddenly it was, and then 4 days later Family was broadcast and it was back to normal. But it caused a storm. I'm sure you had a sense of it. It would have caused, you know, I think it's almost literally the case to say that it caused a storm when it was broadcast.
It was great it made onto the news pages as much as on the television review. So I remember opening it, like back at the back page of The Guardian, there was a great photograph of the family together. And I think that was a side of the issues it was dealing with that were slightly unusual. And I wasn't in Ireland at the time, but people used to say that in episode 3 when Paula hits Charlo over the head with a frying pan, that it was like hearing a World Cup goal being scored. If you're standing in the street, you could hear the yay!
Jesus! I saw him looking at you. Is he dead? Kill him. No, there's no need. He'll kill you now. He won't. He will. He won't. He's not that bad. Mum. Don't worry, love. He's finished. He's out of here. What's going on? Go on up, love. He's doing to me, Dad. Go on up, I said. To me, Dad. Get up! He's doing to him. He's all right. There's nothing wrong with him. Now go on. I have to teach him a lesson. Go on!
The reaction to it was good. As I said, one half the adult population watch it. There were huge objections to it coming from, say, the left, who were saying that I was suggesting that all working class families were like this, from the right and the church, who were suggesting that I was undermining the Irish family. And it was, you know, the day after, it was, you know, I remember turning on the news the day after, you know, getting ready to go to work. And I mean, it was the headline. It was the main headline, and there were people, you know, speaking on behalf. Say there were objections from people who lived in the location, Ballymun, and other people who decided they were qualified to talk on their behalf. There were national politicians talking about it. The Irish equivalent of Questions and Answers. It devoted most of its time to it. Lunchtime news was about domestic violence. So the whole thing for the whole rolling month. Was, you know, family was the story, or a story, certainly the story for the first week, and then a story, and it was very unsettling. It was very hard to, very proud of it, really, you know, to have for a piece of writing and a piece of, you know, film art like that, to have an impact like that, very rare. And I also received death threats, you know, which was you don't expect that.
Did you really receive death threats?
I did, yeah. I got two in the post. So yeah, death threats by post. It's so old. Not luckily not addressed not to my home address, but addressed to RTE, the national broadcaster, and then sent on to me. And that, I know, you know, that's something. Even though I didn't take it too seriously at the time, I think it began to send a shiver through me later on. You know, that.
What was the main reason for the anger? Was it the portrayal of...
Well, one never explained it really. It was just said I was dead, you know, and had a photograph of me with dead across my forehead, you know, but didn't go into reasons why. The other, just a litany of abuse and what I was doing, and my days were numbered, and look behind you type of stuff, you know. But now if I got something like that, I'd be on to the police immediately. At the time I binned it. You know, But I got a lot of letters objecting to it, and they were fine. I didn't mind them. You know, that again, I felt, well, if it moves somebody to write a letter and, you know, start citing law and their objections to it, I thought, well, that's a...
Did you have any letters from people who liked it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're not
Actually
telling you
more.
very well, yeah.
More.
Death threats and objections.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also, you know, you know, when I ventured out and went for a pint with my friends, people wanting to buy me a pint, which I didn't really want, but it was kind of, it was, my friends quite liked it.
Smoking cars is foil. You're going the wrong way.
Stop it. Stop.
Suit yourself.
Charlo, in a more, I suppose, in a darker sense, is a lad. You know, that there's a charisma there, definitely. You know, that he's there's a strut that is. You can see a lot of his past in the strut, the way he walks, and, you know, Sean McGinley in the first, the way Sean walks is brilliantly done, and but there's a bit of a brute there as well. But I wanted him to be. It was important that he be human, that we don't let him off, you know, with the notion that he's somehow either evil or ill. That he's just, you know, he's a bully. But I made him up as I went along. You know, I would do that quite a lot. He does something, and that makes him a little more precise. I think, for example, when he robs the pencil case out of the kid's school bag, having slept with the kid's mother in a child's bed, you know, and he just robbing I found it very funny, the notion of him doing it, but it's just, you know, you're thinking, what a creep. It was just that little thing, and I didn't know, if I remember correctly, when I was writing that scene, I didn't know he was going to do that. I just added that. It just seemed to, there was fun to be had there, I think, but then you're thinking, oh God, how low can you get, you know? And the answer is probably lower.
I should never have.
No, you shouldn't have. Keep in touch.
The fact that his absence, the fact that he has been a presence, and his absence is there's the expectation that he's going to come in through the door, you know, he's like Jack Nicholson, you know, through a panel in the wall, or the door, that he literally come in that way, you know. So there was that plot, if you like, the absence of Charlo was there, but I think then you go back to the previous episodes and Sean McGinley's work, you know, and Andrew's work and Michael's work, you know, planting him as this huge character very, very quickly. Then his absence is felt, and I suppose that's where Ger Ryan, who played Paula, her skill comes in, and Michael's skill comes in to fill that absence. That actually, by the end of episode 4, you don't miss him.
Leave me alone! I want them out of the house! No! Let
Don't
go!
touch that stuff.
Fingers! Will you let go?
Come on.
Ah!
Doyle. Save your right. Save your right.
I'm going up again.
John Paul is at an age where life has become complicated. He adores his father, but at the same time doesn't. There's that complication. He's, you know, if it was for want of a better phrase, a normal household, it would be perfectly natural for him to feel a distance to his father and a certain revulsion towards him, because he's growing up, quite literally. He's growing up and becoming his own person. But there's the complication of the size of his father, for example, the bullying nature of his father, and like a lot of, you know, even in my memories of school, for example, if there was a teacher who was particularly brutal, you were quite grateful to him on the days when he was being nice, you know. And there's that in the house as well. Their dad is great. He hands out money, you know, he's lovely, chips, you know, all the good stuff when he's on form, you know. So that makes you doubly grateful. You know, this is the way I was imagining it. But then there's the fear and the guilt. What did I do? You know, as a lot of people feel when they are the victims of violence or abuse. What did I do to deserve this? You know, is there a smell off me? Did I do something wrong? And then, you know, seeing his father being thrown out. A very complicated thing as well, you know. And he is, you know, his father is in many ways his role model.
My name is Paula Spencer and I am an alcoholic. I like alcohol very much indeed.
She has her own demons as well, you know, alcohol. After the opening of episode 4, with Jerry Ryan looking in the mirror and talking. You know, it's quite extraordinary, shattering in many, many ways. But she literally, I suppose almost literally is the glue. She just holds herself together and then holds them all. And that insistence on normality at the very end of episode 4, that routine. And you feel that that's a routine she's going to stamp on the house every day.
Right. John Paul, say the grace before meals.
What?
Say the grace before meals, go on.
What? She's gone mad.
No, I haven't.
Bless us, O Lord.
Not Julianne, love, sorry. John Paul.
Why?
It's a prayer, go on.
It's stupid.
Don't say that. It's a prayer. Bless us. Go
I don't
on.
know it.
You do. I want to start the dinner with a prayer.
Bless us, our Lord.
Go on.
And these are gifts which... No, of our bounty, which we receive of our Lord. Amen.
Grand. Amen. Thanks. You can eat after you say amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
I was so interested in the character Paula that I went and wrote 2 novels about her, you know, later on, because I was interested in these questions myself. Is she to blame? Who's to blame? What did she see in him in the first place? Why did she endure him, or, you know, for 17 years? Can you love somebody who treats you badly for 17 years? And I mean, she reached the conclusion, the kind of vague but very clear conclusion in The Woman Who Walked Into Doors, the novel I wrote about her. I don't know. She keeps repeating, I don't know.
You ain't asking more personal questions. Look, bollocks, back him up. Well, you're on for that, right?
Anyway, going back to this Saturday night.
Just drop it, there's nothing to tell, no, leave it. No, it's my personal business.
You're a knacker. A knacker, a fucking little tramp, that's what you are. Queuing up for you the way. Must you change them? A tramp, that's all you are.
No.
Yes, you are.
I have to go.
Must you change? Much.
I didn't want Charlo to actually abuse Nicola, and I don't think he did. If we're talking about the physical act of rape, I don't think he did. It's a strange one for me to say, because, you know, I am the writer after all. Why can't I say he didn't? Because there are gaps in, you know, a script, good, bad, or indifferent. There's a lot of white on the page. So there's a lot of life going on elsewhere other than the lines, you know. So it is possible that beyond the script that Charlo did, if not rape the girl, manhandle her, or, you know, physically behave in a way that was just utterly inappropriate and wrong. But I actually don't think that occurred. And I'm not even sure that he's decided that this is what he's going to do. It's his weapon now of choice, standing in front of her, making her walk around her, looking at her in a way that's inappropriate, just wrong, and bullying in a very complicated and awful way. But I didn't want to plant too much there. I didn't want people to be appalled by, you know, so I wanted it to be more almost, and I'm maybe wrong using the word, I wanted it to be more mundane, if you like. I didn't want it to be a big, huge, big, dramatic, screaming moment.
Valerie?
Get away from her door.
I wasn't doing anything.
Get away!
Okay, okay.
Well, we worked with the great casting director Leo Davis, who'd worked on The Snapper previously and knew a lot of the Irish actors. And the hardest thing, I guess, was probably finding Charlo to begin with. It was Charlo and Paula, and then the children. There was a lot of open casting at school.
Almost always. All sisters are wangers. Lost. Oh. Oh, a way star, yeah. Yeah, like your dad.
Well, I mean, obviously the four family members were the key parts, and I mean, I think we cast Sean quite early on. I think Sean's a brilliant actor. You know, I think Charles' character obviously is like sort of dominates the family, and so he needs to have someone who would be able to kind of have that kind of charisma that Roddy was talking about, but at the same time kind of show you kind of not sentimentalise the character, but sort of show you kind of how kind of oppressive it would be to be with him. And Sean, did we go and see Sean in a play at the time?
We saw Sean playing Claudius and Hamlet at the theatre in Dublin, and he was absolutely fantastic because Sean is not a Dubliner. He's from a completely different part of the country. He's from Ballyshannon, up in the top northwest corner, and so he's not a Dubliner, and he's much more. At the time, was much more known as a theatre actor.
Fucking run yourself. Come on! Paula! I can wait. Heads will roll. Heads will roll.
Yeah, Jer, I think, is brilliant in the series. Like a bit like Roddy was saying, it's because obviously her role is more understated than Charlo's role, and she's a sort of kind of long-suffering kind of wife at the beginning, and then then by the end she has to sort of she has to take over and be the kind of centre of the whole kind of story in a way. I mean, the thing is, once you cast people, it's hard to imagine it being anyone else. Just Jer seems like kind of Paula. It seems like that would be the obvious choice. I think she did a brilliant job in the film, which was great to work with. And she, I think she had a sort of strength, that you could believe that she could have been in that relationship for that long, and then kind of, and still be kind of, at the end of it, strong enough to do what she did, really. But
the other ones came out of John Paul especially came out of a family with no connection with acting. He wanted to be a football player, and we did a lot of trips. We spent ages in school, so it's like just workshopping with a lot of children and getting it down to a smaller group, and.
And it was quite difficult to persuade him to do it because he was going to miss his Saturday football, I think, for 3 months. It was quite a long shoot, it was like a 3-month shoot, so. But fortunately we persuaded him.
Yeah. And there was sort of a choice between them. There was a group of boys in the end that made up John Paul and his mates, because there were two other characters that became good friends in the second episode. I can't remember how, because Nicola's dad was quite a well-known actor in Ireland. But I can't remember whether she was working as a waitress at the time and somewhere in a restaurant in Dublin.
Nellie.
Yeah.
Nellie
Her dad. Her dad's an actor, and her brother. Yeah, and Nellie. She was only 16, I think. It's hard to imagine because she's still acting. She's on stage in Dublin at the moment.
But she was a bit like Barry. She was very reluctant.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of persuasion involved. Like, oh, come on, sure you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And now they both. Barry wanted to be a football player. She wanted to be a waitress. And now they're both actors. So.
Mm-hmm.
Ballymun where we shot, which I don't think exists in the same sort of form quite
No,
now.
It's been changed quite dramatically, actually. I was there last week. Yeah, very dramatically. There are some of the old shapes still there, but no, it's been.
It's a pretty interesting experience filming there at night, because we were trying to film at night around different alleyways, things like that, and you get kids lobbing milk bottles off the top of the
Be careful what you say. I remember you having to go on the Right to Reply programme in England, sort of defending the defection of Ballymun.
Yeah, there was on the Right to Reply thing where they had two women who represented a community group from there, and I discovered afterwards through a friend of Roddy's that there were 91 community groups on that particular estate at the time, so it was a fairly disparate group of people, and it was all about accusing us of bringing in burnt out cars and old refrigerators and things and just dumping them there and to make it look worse than it was. And And I was desperately going back and checking with the location manager and the designer. Said no, those were already there.
But obviously, in the end, we were making a fictional story. It was the script. We were making the script. It wasn't like we were trying to make a documentary about living on that particular estate. So it was a kind of, it was a sort of location rather than being that this is a film about Ballymun.
Stay, Paula. But Jesus, can we talk about something different, right? It's 2 months or something since he's gone. Start getting used to it, will you?
Go home!
Anyway, you know what you really need, don't you?
Good ride.
That's right. Bang on.
I'll send Harry over to you.
I did feel, there had to be a glimpse of optimism because I didn't want to depict life as being so dark that there's no hope whatsoever, and there is hope, There are glimpses of it. There are glimpses of it throughout the series, I think, glimpses of wit, glimpses of Paula's sisters, for example, they become quite important, and you'd feel in the company of those two women that you're never far from salvation somehow. No, you may be in bits, but you'll still be breathing, so to speak. So I just felt it's a creative choice to decide whether to give a hint of an open door at the end of something like that, or to just keep the door shut. So I just gave a hint that things can get better.
I thought that was really clear at the end of that. There are two things at the end that I think are very striking at the end of the last episode. One is the helicopter shot that pulls away from the house, and the other is that we were lucky enough to work with Elvis Costello, did a song for the end of each episode, and we agonised for ages. We couldn't find a song for the last episode, and he was coming up with ideas. And in the end, he'd given us a tape of the old days of tape. He'd given us a tape of his new album that was about to come out, and there was a song called A Kind of Murder. And one day Mikey just laid it up in the cutting room and said, listen to this, and it just seemed perfect because it was lyrically, it wasn't quite right, but the mood of it and the tone just seemed right. And I'd forgotten that Michael had requested quite early on about, we had a day of a helicopter, about having a camera that was looking directly down at the ground. I remember everybody going, myself included, and I've got no idea what the hell he's doing. And there's a really strong, I think a really aspirational filmic idea at the beginning of every episode when you come in over the Liffey and you see the city, and in the second one you see a bit of the school, and then the third one, it just really builds up. And I think, and then it goes back to ending with the helicopter at the end, which seemed to me to be very much saying, there's a possibility here.
Well, I'd like in the end of each episode and at the very end, I'd like people to say, well, that was good. There you go. That's as much as I, or words to that effect. Yeah, that's as much as I would like. I
think it's a piece of entertainment. I mean, it's hard, talking about now, looking back after so many years. It was a life-changing event for me because it changed. It was the first time that Michael and I ever worked together. It was the first time we did anything that was dramatic, and we were fortunate enough that we did a sort of slightly crazy thing. We cut together a film version of it that was shot in Super 16 and blew up with 35mm prints. That, if you talk about entertainment, that went all around the world to film festivals all around the world, and you didn't have to know anything about Dublin or not having any money or as being in an abusive family to find that. I don't know whether entertainment is the right word, but certainly captivating and gripping, and it moved a lot of people all around the world. So I think that's a nice legacy.
But for me, they shine within your eyes as the trees reach for the sun above. So my arms reach out to you for love. With your hand resting in mine, I feel a power so